Welcome to the Clearly Well podcast. I'm Elizabeth McKeon, a board-certified psychiatric mental health and addiction recovery nurse. This podcast aims to bridge the gap between mental health and substance use discussions, fostering understanding and empathy while reducing stigma. Join us as we amplify the voices of those with lived experiences, creating a non-judgmental space for their stories to be heard. Thank you for tuning in. So welcome back. This is part 2 of Brittany Rockmore. So on your first episode, we you've just gotten a ton of money from the guy that you're living with. You guys have been to Vegas. You're buying 8,000 pills at a time. So let's take, you said that, you wrapped that episode up with, this is the beginning of the end. So let's take it from there.
So ended up having a friend that was doing heroin. And so we would go get some heroin. That friend and her husband come up, and we were all just going to party a little bit. So we're kind of, I'm not really a snorter. I was a more smoker. So they're kind of doing these big lines, and I just did a teeny little bitty line. Well, I remember standing on the porch smoking a cigarette and then kind of leaning so far over that I almost knocked the table over, and I was like, man, I'm messed up. I need to sit down. The next thing I remember was me laying flat on the ground, and my friends were standing around me, and everybody was screaming, crying, and I was like, what is wrong with y'all? And, like, everybody was hugging me, and I was like, y'all, what is going on? And my friend's over in the corner, and she's on the phone with 911, and I was like, y'all, what is going on? And, like, my boyfriend picked me up off the floor, and he was like, oh, my God, you've been dead for some minutes. He was like, you overdosed, and all I can say is, thank God that we had Narcan. Like, when I mean, it was like in the bottom of the drawer in the back of the bathroom, because who's using that or whatever. We lived out of town. I think it would take about 20 minutes to get like
for EMS to get there.
She ends up putting me on the phone with 911, and I'm like, no, I'm fine. Like, really, I'm cool. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, and they were like, no, ma'am, you didn't even wake up on the first dose of Narcan. It took 2, and we really need to bring you in to evaluate you. And I was like, no, you don't need to come. Like, this is fine. Well, they insisted on coming, so they come in, check me out, and I'm still like, I'm fine. Like, nothing's wrong. Like, I don't.
You're not even processing that
I
you died.
I was standing there hanging out 1 minute and was dead. And
what did you snort?
I'm assuming what we was told was heroin, but now, I mean, as fentanyl.
Yeah.
But I could not believe that I was standing there hanging out with some friends and dead on the floor the next.
Yeah.
I really could not believe it.
Well, you had no tolerance for that amount.
No, and I did the smallest one out of everybody, and they're just all, and but you can't tell how much is in each. You really can't.
No.
So,
and you don't know what the percentage of fentanyl or possibly xylazine, because xylazine would have been making its debut around that time, and nobody knows if they have that, and it completely stops the respiratory system. But I'm going to say, if you came back with 2 doses of Narcan, it was not xylazine, because you can't come back from xylazine with Narcan. So fentanyl.
I was appalled. Could not believe that had happened. So I was like, downers wasn't my thing anyways, but like I said, I'll partake. So my boyfriend, downers was his thing. Mine was meth, downers was his. So he, like the very next day, we're over at a friend's house, and there's some fool going around, and he hits it, and I lost it. I was like, how dare you? I died yesterday, and you're just over here smoking that stuff. I could not believe it.
Right.
Truly insanity, because it wasn't traumatic enough for him, and he was like, and it was just awful. So I was like, I cannot believe you would be doing that stuff, blah blah blah. Time rocks
over there passing judgment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Time rocks on, and when I mean time, just weeks, because when I mean the beginning of the end, we were still together, but we were like doing separate things. And so with the rest of that money, like we would try to talk about making responsible decisions, but couldn't make them. So I was like, with all this money, you really should like invest in a house and something that you can, because you've bought, look at the money we've bought and we have nothing to show for it. So he was going to buy this house and, it just become, heroin hangout, if you will. And, I ended up, by this time, like, this was at the end of COVID. This was like 2021. I forgot a small part, but before we moved out of our other house, all the law ended up showing up. I'm not sure. My boyfriend ended up leaving with one of our friends, and because I'm sure the neighbors called the law, but they were like on their way out. Well, I just kind of jumped off the bank and was going to take a little nap and then come back up. So I ended up back in the car trying to back it in the driveway and bumped into a state patrol car. And I was like, what are they doing here? Got another DUI. This is DUI number 5. And I was like, I'm done. I'm cooked. On your 4th DUI, I think it's a mandatory 5 years, but because I had completed that rehab I told you about, that was in with them. So now the meth charge I'm on bond for, and now I just got my 5th DUI, and I'm like, this is the end of the end. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think it was a 10-8. A 10-8. They wanted me to do 8 straight years.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't have 5 DUIs in a 10-year span. No, the state of Georgia will not have that. So I got to talking to my public defender, and he was like, I'm not even going to sugarcoat this. It's not looking good. It's really, really not looking good. They're using the word career criminal. That, it just doesn't seem to stop. Not only are you on bond for a felony drug charge, but now you've just gotten a 5th DUI, and this is pretty awful. So I would just keep using drugs, and I'm done. So I would just let the drug use really rock on and really get out of control. At this point, my boyfriend had probably overdosed 3 times, and then it become to the point to where like somebody would have to have Narcan because one of the 4 of us is most likely going to overdose, and I couldn't grasp that heroin stuff, and I was like, I'm trying to get high, not die. Okay. I'm trying to get high, not die, and this stuff is killing folks.
Right.
The stories, we've been talking about my story, but the stories of friends that I've had and I've lost is just truly, honestly, it just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't.
Young people that didn't even see 21 that, I was going to funerals for, watching people watch it tear marriages apart, watching it take young kids, just the impact that fentanyl has put on the whole world is just awful. I can't imagine what everybody in the world has gone through and the amount of people that they've lost.
Right.
Because it's worse in some areas.
Because 129 people will die today of a fentanyl overdose.
And
FYI.
Just to see how crazy for that to have happened to me, you can just be hanging out one minute and seriously dead the next.
Well, and your story to me is just so impactive at the way that you were justifying your use because, like you said, you were getting high, not trying to die. And yet you are in a world of hurt, a world of trouble. You yourself have overdosed at this point, and you're justifying the continued use of the methamphetamine.
Oh, yeah. So I called the public defender. He said, just going to be honest, it's not looking good. So I got off the phone, and even amongst, the drugs and the alcohol and all the things, I said, something has got to change. But I have to make a huge change. I don't know why I can't. I was like, why can't I just use meth like a normal person? Why can I just not use meth like a normal person? And then I realized that normal people don't use meth.
Correct.
So
never ever have I used meth.
What? Exactly.
And I say that not to be judgy, but because it scares me.
It should.
Like, extremely scares me.
It should. So I was talking to my boyfriend, and I said, I'm thinking about taking drug court. And he's like, oh, that's great. That'll get both of us on board. It'll be accountability for the both of us. All the things. Well, while, you have to turn yourself in because you have to be sober before you start that program. So I had to go turn myself in for 90 days, which 2 for 1's 45. So during that stint, I think, small town, I think I'd heard of him overdosing another 3 times.
Your boyfriend?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I get out of jail. That night, he passes out, and I ended up taking the car, and because there was still a bottle of liquor in my freezer from before I went. So I ended up drinking that and driving to a friend's house.
Ouch.
And picking her up, and we were going to come back and hang out, and it was almost like I picked up where I left off. And then the next day, because I got out on like a Friday, and I didn't have to report until Monday. Because I know how to do this.
Gotcha.
So I wasn't going to use any hard drugs, but I did drink. And then by the time I got to the friend's house, I done had the law called on me. But of course, I manipulated my way out of that and was like, she cut me off at the end of the street, and I had my friend come outside and said that she was driving because obviously I don't have a license. I remember the next day waking up and reflecting on what I had done the night before, and just being like,
what am I doing?
What am I doing? And why would you not be out even 12 hours later and you're already drunk and you've already got the law called? Anyway, so I made it from then on to do the next right thing and to know that drugs and alcohol cannot be a part of my story anymore. I like to say drugs took my soul, so I took my soul to the altar. But, I knew that something really had to change.
Was it just that, like, 5th DUI and having the meth charge at the same time and then almost getting a 6th? Was it that? What was the defining moment of change for you?
So, my sister has 2 daughters, and they are my everything. And I just noticed it got to the point to where I think my oldest niece was about 4 when I decided to make this decision, and she would just say things like, just that would break my little heart, kind of like, are you leaving again? Or what? I could just tell that I wasn't being a very good role model. And not having kids of my own, I give all that to them. So I just really wanted, like, when they come and they needed me, I wanted to be the best version of myself for them.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
I couldn't get boyfriend on track. He would come to my house. By the way, me and my sister live maybe 50 yards apart.
Oh.
So they're right next door.
Okay.
So I always get to see them. I do love that. But it was very good because I didn't. So when I started drug court, I don't have a license, obviously, and that was a far off shot. I still had the time to go before you're even eligible for a license. Now we're into having to get interlocks.
Okay.
And I had 2 of those.
What is that? Can you explain that to our listeners?
Yes. So an interlock is where they hook a device up to your car, and it's a breathalyzer, and you have to blow zeros before the car will start.
Okay.
When I mean a headache, like, they've really got to do some figuring out on those things have come a long way. But if you try 3 times and you can't get it, the car won't start. But I've seen sober breath people blow into them and not get the car to start. Anyways,
yeah, don't gargle with Listerine and go blow in your car.
Won't do it.
Yeah, won't do it.
Nope. So I had to have 2 waivers for that. I had to end up getting SR22 insurance.
What's SR22 insurance?
It's high risk insurance.
Okay.
And just think of whatever you think your insurance is now, triple that.
Okay.
For 6 months of the lowest level liability on a 2016 Maxima was right at $2,100.
A year?
6 months.
Oh.
And you had to pay it in full.
Ouch.
Yeah. So boyfriend at this time, can't get him on track, end up kicking him out a bunch. He ends up overdosing again. So I call up our other good friend that runs a men's treatment facility, and I said, look, I don't even know if he'll make it till tomorrow. Can you please get him in? She let us in with like half the, we paid half the money and got him in. And now I could focus on myself and what I was trying to do, and he could focus on himself and what he was trying to do. I keep saying boyfriend. It's my husband now. It's a lot more serious than that. Yeah. So,
Okay, because I asked the love question
Yeah.
back there, so you must have grown to love him after time.
yeah, I did a lot. So we,
You know, when
he-
your change brain repairs itself and you can turn your feelings back on.
and under it all, he was, I mean, I've known him for 20 plus years, so he was really one of my good friends. So regardless of what we had going on, he was one of my good friends, and I didn't want to see him die, and he was going to die.
Yeah.
He was really on the track to die. I mean, he was doing it and doing it hard. He, all that money, I remember him coming to me, like I said, we bought 2 cars. He ended up selling his truck for the very lowest bottom dollar. It was appraised. I mean, I think Blue Book value on it was like $32,000. It was a nice Toyota Tacoma, and in his drug addiction self, ended up taking like 20 grand for it. And I remember that being like at the end of February, and by Christmas he was again. No. Let's see. It was like 30 days before Christmas.
And what year? 2021?
2021.
Okay.
So he had took $20,000 for that truck, and I remember it wasn't even 30 days. It was more like 20. He showed up at my house at Christmas asking me if I could buy him a pack of cigarettes and something to eat because he had no money.
Oh, no.
And that was because we'd done blew through all the money, so now we have to go through the things that we had bought with the money, so the truck was the first thing to go. And then he ended up getting a possession of fentanyl and blowing a red light. Very luckily, he didn't kill somebody or worse, because
Yeah.
he was always driving like that. It was very scary. So he ended up getting into a program for a year, and I knew that I could focus on myself, he could focus on himself. Because we weren't married and it's a Christian program, we couldn't speak
No, that's good.
Yeah, it was, because I didn't want to worry about him. I didn't want him worrying about me. I wanted us to focus on, because working in treatment now, like, I try to be telling people all the time, like, don't come to rehab looking for love. I'm not going to mention all the cliches, but I've got a bunch, and it's,
No, it's true.
Everybody can,
how can you
everybody
fix
can
yourself
screw around, but who can get clean up in here?
Right.
So,
It's true.
yeah. So she would help. Like, I ended up getting his daughter moved back in with me before he even come home, and got her enrolled in our school and stuff. So she would let us talk for stuff like that. But, his program was done right. My program was done right. I knew that when I started drug court, it wasn't going to be long before they had mentioned something to me. But because we live in such a small town, I said, "You look such a mess everywhere, knotted out at the gas pump and at the Ingles, and people are calling me like, they're not going to allow you to be around me." And it ended up happening. So, yeah, I had to write 3 letters to drug court, and it was a big ordeal of getting him permission for him to move back in. So,
And that is this after he completed the year that you're trying to
yeah,
get
drug
permission?
court is a minimum of 18 months.
Okay.
Depends on where your phase up date is. So I was in drug court right at 23 months. But so he had
Oh, 2
started and
years.
finished his.
Did you stay clean the whole time?
Yes. Oh, I was on drug court. So yeah.
Okay.
But in the midst,
there are people that fail drug court though.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I'm asking
well, I'm
you.
glad I
You
didn't
did
take it years ago, and I took it because they are not fooling around.
No, I
So
know those
if you
folks.
think you're going to go in there and fool that program, just hang it up, because I'll give advice to people. What about that drug program? If you are seriously not trying to make and change, and just don't bother, because you might get away with it once, you will not get away with it again.
Well, I can't imagine how it feels now. How long have you been clean?
Almost 3 years. My clean date is June 8th, 2021.
She has a wrench on her forearm that has her clean date. And why do you have a wrench tattoo? And tell me about that, because I already know the answer, but our listeners don't.
I just love all things hot rod. Yeah.
And aren't you a little bit of a mechanic?
I like to think so.
Okay, that's what I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
like to
that's
think
great.
so.
You're a rock star.
Yeah.
I just going to brag on you a little bit. You actually are a part of my Jail and Reach program. Yep, so I'm crying.
You're so sweet.
So, Sean, did you pause that, or am I just crying on air? I'm just crying on air. Okay, cool. No, it's fine. I just want to brag on you because I was at the Georgia Alcohol and Recovery, Addiction Recovery listening session at Lighthouse Recovery a few months ago, and you basically just grabbed the notebook out of my lap, wrote your name and phone number down, and was like, hire me.
Please.
So you are actually doing the group counseling in our detention center for our Jail and Reach program, which, by the way, I'm just going to brag on it real quick. That is a program that puts the life back in folks who have recidivism to jail that struggle with mental health and addiction. And it extends treatment and MAT services if they so choose before they leave jail, which medication-assisted treatment helps folks not to go out into their communities and overdose. And while they're incarcerated, they receive counseling and support. And if they need insurance, we try to help get that applied for and teach true living skills so that these folks maybe don't go back to jail and make those same poor choices, right? So that's a little bit about what I'm doing. But thank you for being a part of that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do is I wanted to learn how to live and stay clean in my hometown. Because that's what I found such a problem is the friends weren't a problem. All these other things weren't a problem. And it really is truly about taking everything you know and turning it around.
Yep.
The only thing that has to change is everything.
That's right. Yep. So I guess that wraps up. I'm like over here just busting out in tears, but, just real proud of us and what we do for Georgia. I don't just work in our little hometown. I work all over the state of Georgia, and I've even taken these grants into different states. I'm actually working in Tennessee also
You're
right
great.
now.
You should let me do a podcast interviewing you so we can talk about all the good things you do.
So, yeah, we can do that. We can turn around one day. But anyway, thank you so much, Brittany. Your story is so impactful. And I think Sean, we're down to like the end of our guests. I think you and I are going to wrap up on the next episode. And then we'll be starting season 2, which will be EMS and law enforcement and providers, LCSWs, nurse practitioners, doctors. Change brain. Yeah, we're going to talk about all the things. So, but I can't wait to hear what law enforcement and EMS and local government folks have to say about their experiences and their stories. So, anyway, thank you again, Brittany.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
I want to state that please do not substitute this podcast for professional therapy or treatment. The content shared here is for informational and entertainment purposes only. We do ask our listeners to respect the diverse experiences of individuals and refrain from passing judgment. If you or someone you know needs professional help, please seek the guidance of a registered and qualified mental health professional. Clearly Well is brought to you by Healthy Georgia and produced by CNC Media.